Remember your daughter.
Oh, shut the fuck up, you bitch! Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and today I watched John Wick Chapter 4 at 0.2 epic speed, and yes, it took a total of 5 days to finish it at that speed. Now, I found a total of 31 incredible hidden details that will make you love this movie on a whole new level. But before that, if you could just spare me 80 seconds, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Monopoly Go. Have you ever wondered what life would be like with unimaginable wealth and status? Ever wanted to be a tycoon like Tony Stark for a day? Luckily, I've discovered the easiest way to do just that through Monopoly Go. It's the best way to experience what it's like to get rich quick, without robbing a bank or selling your organs. Best of all, if you lose, you don't have to play cleanup from flipping the game board. Now, we've all at one point played the classic board game Monopoly, but Monopoly Go makes for a more convenient mobile gaming experience fit for the modern age. Games are super easy to start and win. Sessions can be short and sweet if you only have a few minutes to jump in. You can still make some big moves in a short amount of time. Now, my favorite aspect is building cities and watching my empire grow. You can even upgrade houses to hotels for extra rent. Man, I feel like a landlord. It's the timeless game you're familiar with, but with new opportunities added every day, like tournaments, the price drop Plinko minigame, cash grab, and hourly events with exciting rewards. Now, it wouldn't be Monopoly if you couldn't show your dominance against your peers, so join forces with friends and reap the rewards from community chest events. But this game also has a great solo adventure mode to explore when you can't rally your lads for a game. So what are you waiting for? If you want to experience what it's like to be a true tycoon and rule the Monopoly Go world, download the game through the link in description or by scanning the QR code on screen. Number 1. At the beginning of the movie, when we see the Bowery King, we see all these symbols in the background. These are hobo symbols from the early 1900s that means safe house or safe haven, implying this is the Bowery King's resting place. In fact, if you go further, you'll find the same symbols and its meanings in Mr. Nobody's sketchbook. Number 2. John Wick uses the Glock 34 TTI Combat Master at the beginning of the movie. Now, Glock 34 usually comes with 17 rounds, and here in this scene where John shoots down 3 henchmen of the Elder, he shoots a total of 16 rounds and then he reloads. So with just 4 minutes into the movie, we already see an accurate count of bullets and reloads. Number 3. The first time we see John in the Osaka Continental, we see a bunch of sakura or cherry blossoms. Now, sakura is used as a symbol of death in Japan in certain contexts. The Osaka Continental is rife with sakura trees and decorative motifs, indicating the slaughter is about to take place. This is perhaps also a hint towards John's ultimate fate. Number 4. This is chapter 4 in the John Wick series, and in Japan there's a superstition that the number 4 means death, because both 4 and death are pronounced as she in the Japanese language. That's why some hotels or hospitals in Japan would completely skip the 4th floor in their buildings. And it's really poetic that John dies in the 4th chapter, where we also see the Japanese Continental. Number 5. At the beginning of the Osaka Continental fight, notice the lights behind John are red, but as soon as men from the high table arrive and a fight is about to take place, the lights turn green, indicating just like traffic lights, you stop at red, but at green you move forward. Number 6. At this point, we all know that everyone from the high table wears bulletproof suits and vests, but one detail that really caught my eye is this. Notice when John shoots the henchman of the high table, we can see the shell casings lying around on the floor. Now, John is using a Glock 34 in this scene, which is a semi-automatic handgun. And yes, the Glock 34 does eject shell casings during its normal operation, and that's exactly what we see here. But what's fascinating to me is that Keanu Reeves actually never shoots any real bullets while filming. That's CGI. And still we see shell casings scattered across the floor, which could only mean one thing, and that is the VFX team really paid attention to every detail. Number 7. Now, there's a very fun little detail here in this scene as well, which is probably a mistake in the movie, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. After John shoots this guy in the head, he's definitely dead, right? But notice, even after being dead, he moves his left leg ever so slightly so that this giant stuntman can fall over and not hurt himself. Number 8. During this fight, this particular masked man literally gets up 7 times before John Wick finally stabs him in the neck and kills him. But this fight takes place at such a high speed speed, so in slow motion I really found a lot more detail in the choreography. For example, when this guy falls on the floor for the third time, a piece of his armor comes off, indicating that with each fall, his armor's integrity is getting compromised. He even tries to get it back, but John shoots him in the helmet again. Number 9. When Kane receives a card in Braille with the name of John Wick, notice he reads it backwards. Now this is actually the right way to read Chinese ideograms and sinograms, and considering that both the actor Donnie Yen and his character are Chinese, this is a very accurate detail. Number 10. Mr. Nobody was told by Akira that animals aren't allowed in the Continental. That's when he says it's actually him who's the emotional support animal and not the dog.
She's your support animal.
Other way around. I'm hers. Isn't that right?
And notice on the sketchbook, we can actually see the name of Mr. Nobody's dog. And it's Daisy, the same name as John Wick's original dog that was killed. Number 11. If you carefully pay attention to Mr. Nobody's sketchbook, we can figure out why he's chasing John Wick's bounty. Notice his safe house and the dog's value are at $48.3 million. So that's why Mr. Nobody wants John to stay alive until his price goes up, so that when he kills him, he gets paid $50 million. And with that money, he will buy his and his dog's freedom. I love how this side story was never explained through verbal dialogues, but just through some sketches in this book. If you pay attention, you'll know the story. If you don't, you won't. That means the director and writers trust the audience and their intelligence. And this is also the reason why Mr. Nobody switched sides at the end, because John had saved his dog Daisy. And Daisy's the reason Mr. Nobody got into this chaos in the first place. Number 12. Kane doesn't appear to kill unless he absolutely has to. And even when he shoots, he aims for the legs or the arms. But notice at one point in the Osaka Continental fight, he uses his cane to measure the height so that he can aim his gun at a proper angle. Number 13. Kane plants some motion sensor devices that produce a doorbell-like ringing sound upon detecting movement, enabling Kane to locate enemies. But notice the very first device that he plants on the wall, he had to readjust it to a lower height. Now this is a great detail, because it implies that Kane is used to fighting enemies who are usually American, and Americans tend to be significantly taller than Asians. That's why his first instinct made him plant the device where he usually would. But then he remembered who he's fighting, and that's when he lowered it. Number 14. One thing that John consistently does in all his fights is he makes sure that his opponents cannot access their weapons. And here we see the exact same thing. Notice how John quickly kicks the gun away from his enemy's reach, which he later picks up for himself. Number 15. Just before meeting Winston, John climbs up a flight of stairs in a graveyard. Now, director Chad Stahelski has deliberately put some Latin in these steps, and I've tried my best to translate them into English for you. The first two steps are basically one sentence, and it goes like this: "If I cannot bend the will of heaven, I shall move the powers of hell." It's a line from one of Virgil's poems called the Aeneid. Then on the third step it says, "Let them hate as long as they fear." And step 4 says, "Screw you and the horse you rode in on." Then there are a few blank steps, and then we have "Death is my reward." Now interestingly, in Marvel's Eternals, the ebony blade was inscribed with the same Latin sentence. And the final step roughly says, "Live so that your life will be approved after your death." It could also mean consider the consequences of your actions. And if you think about it, all these Latin inscriptions do fit the description of John Wick. If he cannot bend the will of heaven, he shall unleash hell. And he doesn't care if you hate him as long as you fear him. He rides on horses and goes on missions. And death is the reward he shall receive at the end. And most importantly, he lived a life facing the consequences of his actions. Number 16. When playing 5-card draw with Killa, Mr. Nobody, and Kane, John's hand is 2 black aces and 2 black 8s, which is called a dead man's hand. Now Killa deliberately dealt this to John as a threat, but it's also foreshadowing that John is a dead man. And as soon as John was dealt this hand, everyone on the table pretty much knew that Killa was cheating and the game was rigged. Number 17. When all hell breaks loose in this table, notice Kane, although fires his gun more than he needs to, but he manages to get both headshots. Just goes to show what a cold-blooded killer he is. Number 18. The priest at the Ruskaroma church shoots at John Wick as soon as he sees him. But notice as the guards help John get back on his feet, we see pieces of the fabric from John's bulletproof suit falling down, which obviously didn't happen in real life. So it has to to be an added attention to detail from the CGI team there. Number 19. For the overhead top shot, director Chad deliberately put mirrors in the room so we can see John's reflection and figure out where he is at all times. Even in this shot where John is up against Mr. Nobody, there's a mirror over here so we can always see John's reflection. And if you notice, John's enemies all come in groups of 2 or 3. What this does is it allows the audience to distinguish between John, who's a lone man, as opposed to his enemies who are always in a group of 2 or 3 men. Number 20. Just before the top overhead shot, notice John actually had a little trouble holstering his gun. And I love the fact that they kept this scene instead of redoing it. Goes to show that after all this time, he still isn't perfect. Number 21. Inside the kitchen, John shoots his dragon's breath and sets this man on fire. And this same man who has no visibility anymore ends up running back to John Wick in the next room and gets shot again. Number 22. One of the reasons I'd rank this overhead scene as one of the best action sequences is because it shows that John is not just another fast gunslinger who shoots at people accurately like we see in every other action movie, but this scene shows that John actually prepares for each encounter way ahead of time, and he uses cover and his surroundings to shoot at people before they can react. Number 23. After John falls down the stairs, Kane arrives to help and asks this.
What time is sunrise?
Maybe 3 minutes.
Now, I've counted the minutes, minus the scenes where we only see Mr. Nobody, and it's exactly 3 minutes from this moment until they both reach the top of the stairs. Talk about attention to detail, eh? Number 24. One consistent detail throughout the movie that I really loved is that Kane keeps shooting his enemies even when they're dead. It happened during the poker game and also in the staircase, where he keeps on shooting even when the enemy is dead. Number 25. In the staircase fight, when John runs out of bullets, he literally disassembles the slide of his gun, so he can use the barrel of the gun to stab his enemy instead. And it's all Keanu Reeves who disassembles the gun here. Trust me, sometimes the action choreography in this movie is so great is because they have Keanu as the main protagonist. The fact that he can do all this stuff in real life is the reason why choreographers can come up with something like this. How many A-listers you think in Hollywood can do something like this? Not many, I bet. Number 26. Kane uses a custom-made P365. Now there's a great hidden detail in his gun that really fits with his character, and that is his gun does not have any sights. And if you don't know what a sight is, well, these are devices designed to help the shooter align the gun with the target, ensuring accuracy. And that is a great detail, because why would a blind assassin need sights? Number 27. During Kane's first fight with the Osaka Continental soldiers, Donnie Yen performs his signature chain punches from the IP Man franchise. 28. During the conversation between John and Koji, a Japanese neon sign is visible. It says Sosikon Tetsu, which can be translated as carrying out one's original intention. 29. At the end of the movie, when Winston bids farewell to John Wick's grave, his sleeve shifts slightly, revealing a tattoo on his arm, which indicates that at some point he may have been a member of the Ruska Roma family just like John. Number 30. In the first film, John's video of his wife Helen ends with her saying, "Come on John, let's go home." And at the very end of that film, hearing those words is what gives him strength to carry on.
Come on, John. Let's go home.
And now in Chapter 4, John's final request to Winston before collapsing is to take him home.
Will you take me home?
31. John Wick's first scene in the first movie is of him anticipating his own death after a seemingly fatal injury from a duel, reflecting on his late wife before slumping over to his left. And his final scene in Chapter 4 plays out in much of the same way, though this time John doesn't get back up. And that's it. This would be my breakdown of John Wick Chapter 4 at 0.2 Febic speed. I really hope you enjoyed this video, as I really had to put a lot of research into firearms and guns to figure these details out. And with this video, I've now watched the entire John Wick series at 0.2 Febic speed. Please make sure to watch the rest of the videos. Now if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button and turn notifications on. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram to reach out to me directly. Okay, bye now.